Bill Goodwin is the founder and CEO of Priority Living. He's working to add value by equipping leaders and forming great teams. He is the author of Priority Living: Seven Pillars to Make Your Life Count. Welcome to the show, Bill.
Oh, George, it is a pleasure to be with you today. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, excited to have you on. Tell us about your personal lives, more about your work, and why you do what you do.
Yeah, I currently live in the great state of Minnesota, somewhere you're familiar with growing up here, George. And we did the opposite. I grew up in Arizona, where you currently live, but yeah, I grew up in Arizona. My family, extended family, still out in the greater Phoenix area, and then I live in Minnesota. I moved here 21 years ago to be a pastor of a church here that I served for 18 years. And then several years ago, I transitioned from that role to what I'm currently doing with my company, Priority Living Consulting Group, where I do leadership coaching and keynote speaking and training for corporations, businesses, small businesses, work with C-suite level leaders as well as mid-level managers and nonprofits. So, love getting the opportunity to add value to leaders. Everything rises and falls on leadership. So if we can have great leaders in various areas of our life will be better, businesses will be better, and so that's what I'm currently doing now.
Isn't that the truth? If we're able to effectively lead ourselves, and once we're able to do that, to extend that out to helping others, it's kind of the whole idea and how it all start to work better again.
That's right.
So priority, you've got that in the name of your company, in the name of your book. I imagine that 18 years as a pastor taught you the importance of that.
Boy, not only did that teach that to me, but an experience, George, I had in 1999. You can do the math. I was 28 years old. That makes me 54 years young now. But at the time, I had a severe asthma attack, and that led to respiratory failure where I actually coded. I died.
Hmm.
And I often say I shouldn't be here anymore. November 23rd, 1999 should have been on my tombstone. And that day, I had a life-changing encounter. I had an afterlife encounter that I write about in one of the chapters of the book, and that changed my life to where I realized that it's not just a cliche saying that we say that, you're not guaranteed tomorrow or things like that, but I realized I have been given a second chance at 28 years of age. I need to be intentional about making my life count. And so over these last 20 plus years, George, I created what I call seven pillars that have been intentional or have given me intentionality about focusing on these different seven areas to make my life count. And now, after 25 years of this journey, I thought, well, why keep it to myself? It's time to share these seven pillars with others in hopes that I can encourage somebody that wants more out of their life to be able to have a framework in which they could potentially do so.
Well, I appreciate that. What an experience. My goodness. What a
Absolutely.
strange thing. Like, oh, I was dead but I'm not.
Yes. Yes. And, it was absolutely transformational. Obviously, that's one of the biggest fears we all have is the fear of death. And well, actually, I've come to learn, I think, from Jerry Seinfeld, who said the two greatest fears are public speaking and death. And people would prefer death over public speaking sometimes. So I don't. I think that's how Jerry Seinfeld says it. But at any rate, to be an individual, and there are others out there that people have heard their stories as well that have actually crossed over to the other side and then have come back. It has definitely for me changed my perspective on death and so many other things as well. But my book is more about living than it is about dying because I want to help individuals experience the most out of this life that we have been given.
Well, amen to that. So what are the seven pillars?
Seven pillars are purpose. We need to discover our purpose, and your purpose is the best of what you have to help others. And so, in that first chapter on purpose, we talk about 10 questions to help you clarify your purpose. Mark Twain said that the two greatest days in your life are the day you were born and the day you discover why you were born. And so, purpose is number one. Number two is grow. We grow older naturally, George, but we don't grow better unless we're intentional. And I had a significant mentor in my life when I was a teenager, 16, 17 years old, my Uncle Tom, who was a small business owner with my Aunt Carolyn, and he invested in me. He taught me how to set goals. He taught me about personal development and personal growth, introduced me to guys like Zig Ziglar and others back in the day. And so I've come to learn that growth is important if we're going to become the best version of ourselves. And over the years, now I have many mentors in my life. Started with my Uncle Tom, but one of my personal mentors is best-selling author and leadership expert John Maxwell, and so I'm intentional about growth. So that's number two. Number three is impact. I believe each person uh, has a desire, all of us have a desire to make an impact in this world. And so we talk about in that chapter, how do you make an impact? And impact doesn't have to be on a global scale. It could be changing, making a difference in someone's life, making a difference in your world. That could be a global impact, or it could be changing a diaper in the middle of the night, and now you just made an impact for that child. So we talk about impact is pillar number three. Pillar number four, George, I absolutely love this one. It's resonating with people today. It's the pillar of rhythm. Rhythm is all about our life is not meant to live at fifth gear, full throttle all the time. There is to be a rhythm, a pace. I call it it's a pendulum of like a semicircle that swings back and forth between rest and work. And I heard a great quote from another mentor, Mike Breen, who once said, "We are to work from rest, not rest from work." And I unpack all that in that chapter. That when we live this rhythm of life, we live a much more fulfilled life. Which leads me to the next pillar, which is explore. I believe this whole beautiful planet called Earth is a playground, and we get to explore it. We get to explore the great national parks and the wonders of the world. We get to explore different cultures. We get to explore different people, and so every day I find some way of having fun, some way of enjoying life. Because life short to not enjoy. And so I call connect. Number six is all about relationships. And the quality of our life, George, I fully believe is determined by the quality of our relationships. And so, how do we make greater connections in life? And so, in that chapter, I have a pyramid of connections that goes from being complete strangers with someone up the pyramid to different levels of connectivity that takes place in order to have a more fulfilled life. And then finally, we get to the seventh pillar, which I call give. It's all about generosity. Success is what we gain for ourselves. Significance is the difference we make in the lives of others. And once you've tasted significance, um, success will never satisfy. So it's all about generosity, not just financially, but in various ways that I talk about in that chapter about being a life of giving towards others. And so that makes up my framework of priority living. And it's not just theory; it's something I've been living for over 20 years. And I tell you, it's got a lot of personal stories in there, and then a lot of really practical principles that people can apply to their life.
Well, I love it. I love it. So your experience, 18 years as a pastor, I don't want to put words in your mouth, but I imagine to a degree tending to your flock, nurturing your congregation, giving them what they
Mhm.
need, is probably extremely similar to the work that you're doing now. You see, it's clear crossover.
Well, there are a lot of similarities, that's for sure. And prior to being a lead pastor, I was a youth pastor for over a dozen years in various settings. And you it's so interesting because all those a difference there, but it's always in preparation for what your destiny is, for what's next for you in life. And so all those years as a youth pastor and then a lead pastor, I was adding value to people. I was valuing people and adding value to people. And I was coaching people. I was raising up and developing leaders. I was running in essence, a small business. When you're in church world, you're running a business as well. All of the P&L statements and hiring staff and all of those things that are a part of the church world, and how that has transitioned into being a leadership coach and professional speaker, has really prepared me for what I'm doing today, as well as all of the books I've read, the mentors I've had, all of the ways that I'm growing myself, because you can't give away what you don't have. So I've been intentional to live this life, this second pillar of growing, and continue to do so today. So yes, I do see a lot of similarities between the vocational work that I did into my professional life today. And it's a tremendous blessing to me and find myself to be a blessing.
Yeah, I think it's a really beautiful thing. As you are going through your, I don't want to call it a career, but your time as a pastor, youth pastor, and then as a pastor
Mhm.
leading your church and the congregation, I imagine that you found that there's certain messages that really resonated with people, but it's always trying to thread the needle of giving people what they want and at the same time giving them what they need. Are there certain
Mhm.
messages or things that you found this really gets through, and then I can add in some of the other stuff? I don't know if you understand what I'm trying to
What
ask.
I think I do. I think I understand what you're saying. For me, as a person of faith, as a believer in Jesus Christ, as a Christian pastor, I always wanted to be rooted and grounded in God's Word, and the importance is that the Word of God is relevant today. And what I found a disconnect was that my desire wasn't just to pastor a church, although that was my role. I had a heart and a desire to pastor a city. So my connections was outside of the walls of the church with the mayor and the principals of schools and business leaders in the community and so on. And what I came to find over and over again is that in some situations, I don't want to say all churches, but in some situations, the focus is not on the practical day-to-day life. People spend most of their time at work, not at church for sure, and not even at home. They spend most of their week at work. So I wanted to take biblical principles and teach them in a way that would cause people to be able to live their faith in a way that was, living a life of values and making a difference in the lives of others in their workplace. And so that really resonated with people, I guess is my point to answer your question, was was taking message series that was going to be a workplace, because that's where most of the people that are hearing those messages from the church, from the pastor, that's where they're living. That's where they're going to apply those messages.
Got it. I appreciate that. I've been spending a good amount of time, probably over the past couple year, 2 years, it all sort of runs together, really embracing and exploring the importance of prioritization because not everything can be
Hmm.
the most important thing to me. And I think too often we are people are putting stuff on us, they're asking stuff of us, they're selling stuff to us, they're wanting our subscriptions and our likes and our clicks. But it's incumbent upon me recognizing that it's a very noisy world out there to get crystal clear in what matters to me so that I can prioritize the allocation of my
Hmm.
resources. And so it strikes me that the work you're doing
Yes.
it's so practical and helpful. And while it may seem obvious, I don't think it's obvious at all that we are really clear in what matters most to us.
Hmm. Absolutely. And so, even going back to my book, the framework, George, is the first seven chapters, of course, are dealing with each of those seven pillars. I have three additional chapters. How do you apply priorities in your life? There's a whole chapter on priority setting. I'll touch on that in just a moment. Then we get into talking about foundation. That what helps determine our priorities is the foundation in which those pillars are placed upon. And I talk about what's your foundation, and so we dive into that. That also is part of priority setting. And then we get into the last chapter, which is legacy. What do you want your legacy to be, and how do you choose your legacy now based upon the life that you're currently living? So going back to that chapter on priorities, I was spending time with my mentor John Maxwell one day. I'll share a quick story here, and I said to John, how do I help people and myself be more intentional about setting priorities? And John said something that day that I'll never forget. I love sharing it with others. He said, a leader's calendar will always be full. The question isn't, will your calendar be full? The question is, who's filling your calendar?
Mm.
That was such a profound statement or question that John said, who's filling your calendar? So what I've come to put in practice in my life since that time, that was in 2002, 22 when he said that. So the last 3.5 years, what I've been intentional to do is fill my calendar first. I've determined what my priorities are. So I get out 3, 6 months, sometimes even as far as 9 months or a year out, and I'm placing things on my calendar, and now those dates are already taken. Those I'm gonna have a trip here. I'm gonna have time off here. I'm setting my priority first, and then I come back when others have opportunities. I fill in my calendar with the other things. I think it was Stephen Covey in the Seven Habits of Highly Effective People talked about the jar. We've all heard this illustration of the jar. You put the big rocks in the jar first, then the medium-sized rocks, then the sand, then the water, and it all fills in. We have to determine our priorities. It's kind of funny to say the word priorities because it seems like we can have on numerous ones, but we have to determine what are our top priorities and how do we live those out by putting them on our calendar first, so that they truly are our priority and aren't just they fill in whenever we have time. I share in my chapter on rhythm. I share about a time where I had complete burnout. Um, really hit a wall. And honestly, I was even contemplating suicide at that time. And I share all that very openly in that chapter. But what happened for me was I was consumed with everybody else's stuff. I had no margin in my life. And I thought I could just go, 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 go. And at some point, your body begins to say, enough is enough. I'm shutting down. And you don't want to get to that point. You want to be able to say, I'm going to establish my priorities first. You see, what I never did during that time, George, I never took time off. I worked nonstop. And I had 4 weeks of paid vacation offered to me that I realized I don't have time for this vacation. So, what I learned from that was put my vacation on the calendar first. Then my season of life and work, and at that time ministry, it'll ebb and flow. But I know I've already carved out the priority of these are the times I'm going to rest and I'm going to take a break. Because if I didn't do it ahead of time, if I didn't schedule it ahead of time, I never seem to find that to become a priority for me. And so that's just, some of the things we learn along the way, and encouragement I want to give others as far as a leader's calendar will always be full. The question isn't, is your calendar full? It's the question is, who's filling your calendar? And I hope that's helpful for someone who's listening today.
Well, I think that that is a perfect way to round out the conversation because you and I can say that this is really important to us, but if it's not on our calendar, there's no evidence that it's really important to you. If you're not blocking it in advance, then it's not really. It might be
Mm.
important to you, but it's not a priority. So,
Yes,
got to
yes,
put it in there, got to
absolutely.
honor it, and give yourself some margin for goodness sakes. We're human
Mm.
beings, Bill. We're not machines. So,
Yes, Richard Swenson said the margin is the gap between our loads and our limits.
mm,
And many times in my life, I have exceeded my load to my limit to my load, and so it's important that we do have that margin in our life.
yeah, well said. Well, Bill, thank you so much for coming on. Where can people learn more about you? How can they engage with you? And where can they get their copy of Priority Living?
Yeah, thank you, George. First and foremost, you can go to PriorityLivingBook.com. You'll get all the information there, some endorsements on there for the book, as well as the link to Amazon, where you can purchase that book and have it make a difference in your life. I can also be found on Facebook. Just look for my name, Bill Goodwin. I'm on LinkedIn. Love to connect with business folks on LinkedIn with my name and by name. And then those are the main ways to find me. My business website, if you're interested in more information about leadership coaching or keynote speaking opportunities, that's PriorityLivingCG.com. That stands for Consulting Group, PriorityLivingCG.com. And George, I do so appreciate you having me on today. It's been a real pleasure to spend this time with you.
Yeah, likewise. If you enjoyed this as much as I did, show Bill your appreciation. Share today's show with a friend who also appreciates good ideas. Go to PriorityLivingBook.com and check out a little bit more about what we've been talking about today. And you can find a link to pick up your copy of Priority Living if you're interested in coaching, training, or having Bill come and speak at your next event. Go to PriorityLivingCG.com and you can find him on Facebook and LinkedIn as well. I will certainly list all of those in the notes of the show. Thanks again, Bill.
What a pleasure. Thank you.
Until next time, remember, do your part by doing your best.